Hello lovely people, I'm Debs. Welcome back to my channel, Raina Reads Stuff. I am here in the book shack. It's a beautifully sunny day. Far too hot to have the book shack door shut. So we are fighting with Colin bouncing around on the roof. He's the crow. The noise of the umbrella over the garden table when the wind catches it, it creaks quite a lot. The odd garden people working in the garden, and various other things, so you'll have to excuse me. It is Sunday, so it's time for my weekly reading wrap up. And for the first time in probably a couple of months, I have had a brilliant reading week. I think I'm probably going to leave the best till last. But first of all, I want to tell you about something that's happening on Roy's channel, Roy Reads Anything. Tomorrow, you'll know that a load of us have been reading Finnegan's Wake, and several of the group that are reading Finnegan's Wake read Ulysses last year. Well, tomorrow is Bloomsday, the annual celebration of everything James Joyce. And so a number of us have done readings from the works of James Joyce, and those include Finnegan's Wake, Ulysses, Dubliners, Portrait of the Artist. And Roy has put these all together as a Bloomsday celebration tomorrow. Once he posts it tomorrow, I'll share it. Or you can pop by his channel and have a look. I'm looking forward to seeing it, actually. It should be fun. Anyway, my reading week. Where shall we start? There's so many great events going on this time of year. So, let's find some photographs. And let's start with one that doesn't have anything to do with any reading events whatsoever. Nowhere to be Found by Suah. Translated by Suah Kim Russell. This is an odd book. I thoroughly enjoyed it, but it is a bit strange. We have here an unnamed narrator, a young woman who is in a very fractured and broken family. She has a younger sister, she has an older brother, she has parents who appear to be a bit of a waste of space, really. And this is her trying to navigate her life and try and understand why everybody else appears to be able to motivate themselves while she just doesn't. And we look at things like the broken family and the dead-end jobs she's got, and go through her losing her virginity. It was shortlisted or longlisted for a Pen Translation Award. I thought it was really interesting. I don't know whether I'd recommend it or not. I enjoyed it, but I'm not. It's an odd book. That's all I'm going to say. Right, so to the events. It's the summer of Star Trek. I thought I'd ease myself in gently with a comic, Law War. This, Data's evil older brother, Law, has created a world. This is the first edition of it. Law is running this world in which, sorry, it's not a world at all, it's a complete universe. Law is running this world, and each planet has a designation, and Earth is designated for labour. In fact, quite a few are designated for labour, and all the people of that planet work to the greater good of this universe. Now, hidden in this universe are all the characters, or many of the characters, from various Star Treks. Julian Bashir, however, doesn't last very long in this. But Sisko is working in a labour camp with Dr. Bev. That's right. But Benjamin Sisko is played by Dreams. And he is made aware, or comes to be made aware, that there's something wrong with this universe. And so he sets out to try and rectify it. So far, we've come across Dr. Beverly, Dr. Bashir, Worf, Worf's son, Alexander, Sisko. There's loads of people, as you can see from the cover. Look at that. You see them all? This is fun. I've got some others. Unfortunately, I currently can't find episode 2, and I'm loath to read episode 3 until I've found episode 2. So that's the summer of Star Trek. Due entirely to my lovely friend Pat at Book Chat with Pat, and the fact that it is Pride Month, I read this, Audre Lorde's The Black Unicorn, which is a Penguin modern classic and therefore goes to my 60 before 60 classics. I've read some writings of Audre Lorde, mainly speeches, but Pat devoted her Poetry Thursday to Audre Lorde, and I knew I had this. So this is a book of her poetry. It's divided into 4 parts, and I think I preferred the later parts of this book. The first part particularly was about her African culture, but famously she was a black woman, an educationalist, an advocate for women's rights, black rights, LGBTQ rights. She was a fierce woman, and her poetry is amazing. and I thoroughly enjoyed this. So thank you, Pat, for pointing me in that direction. What else have we read? Oh, some for June on the Range. June on the Range is one of my favourite events, and it is hosted by Michael K. Vaughan. And I'll put all the co-hosts for all these events down below. I started off with this Native American Songs and Poems. This is a David Thrift edition. It's a very small book, but it starts with traditional songs from various of the nations. And I don't know how old these are. They're not dated, but they have obviously been written down. And you have Arapaho and Navajo, you've got Inuit, you've got all sorts of nations represented in the first part of this book. The second part of this book is much more modern and is poetry from people like Sherman Alexie and Beth Brandt and Dwayne Big Eagle. It's really interesting. The traditional songs are often about nature and life. But yeah, put together, they're really interesting. Very enjoyable. Next up, what do we have next? Also for June on the Range. I like Larry and Stretch. They are called the legendary Texas Hellraisers. These books, and there are loads of them, are written by Marshall Grover, who was a very prolific writer, particularly of Westerns. He, I believe, wrote more than 750 novels, and a large percentage of those were Westerns. And he was an Australian. Larry and Stretch are a couple of Texans who bowl about all over the place, getting into trouble. They spend quite a lot of time in various jailhouses, but they are essentially good guys. And their one problem is they refuse point blank to tolerate any criticism of Texas or Texans, and that leads them into a lot of fights. Throughout these books, they are trying to solve other people's problems. And in this one, they find a deputy sheriff who has been made a deputy sheriff because the sheriff fancies his mother. He's completely unsuited to being a deputy sheriff. Larry and Stretch find him strung up a tree where he has been put, complete with his gun still in his holster, by 4 robbers who have robbed a stagecoach. But he does shout to them from his lofty position up a tree to warn them that there is a rockfall coming, and they dodge out of the way just in time. So they feel they owe him. And then they find out that he was actually born in Texas. What he wants, this very short, cowardly, by his own admittance, and completely unsuitable deputy, what he wants most in the world is to marry a young girl known as the Arizona Wildcat, who won't pay him any attention at all and thinks he's a joke. Larry and Stretch feel beholden to him, and so they come up with a plan to help him get his girl. In the meantime, there is an unscrupulous pair of chancers in town who are pretending they are from a railway company, and they are selling shares in said railway company, which actually doesn't exist, to unsuspecting townsfolk. And they plan to fleece them and then leave town. So, can Larry and Stretch sort all these problems out without spending too much time in jail? I love these books. They're completely irreverent. They're very funny, and I really enjoy them. I have read 3. I have 4. I think there's 18 of them altogether. Whether I read any more, I'll probably read the 4th one actually. Right, where are we now? Okay. Summer of Sport. A couple of months ago, I read a book by John Krakauer called Into the Wild, which was him trying to discover what had happened to a young American lad who'd gone into the wilds of Alaska and starved to death. It was a true story. And people said to me at the time in the comments, they said, you ought to try Into Thin Air. Well, the Summer of Sport is a time for reading about sport. And mountaineering is a competitive sport. So, Into Thin Air by John Krakauer is a first-hand account of a disaster on Mount Everest in May 1996, where 8 people died within a couple of days. John Krakauer, who is an avid mountaineer himself, was on one of those expeditions. He was there at the behest of a magazine in the United States to write a feature article on the Everest tourism and the number of companies and organizations that were taking people with no or little experience of mountaineering and trying to get them to the summit of Everest. Now, it's fascinating, this book, absolutely fascinating. Krakauer actually summited. He summited with a couple of members of his group, but the disaster occurred when they were coming down, and members of his group and members of another group, many died on the way down the mountain. This is just, he wrote his article, but didn't think he had enough space, even though the editor had given him 3-4 times as much space for a feature article as would normally be allowed. He didn't feel he'd done it justice, but he also felt that he'd made mistakes in the article, because at the altitudes he was at, there were problems with his brain functioning properly, and the more he spoke to people, the more he wanted to write something that was fuller and corrected some of the things that weren't some of the misapprehensions he'd had initially. So this was written about 10 months after the disaster. You can tell he feels a lot of guilt, both survivor's guilt and guilt about mistakes that were made, even though, you know, he was just a tourist. Well, just a tourist. He wasn't leading the group. He'd never climbed in the Himalayas before. But it's a fascinating book, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. And now, do we get now to... Yeah. I finished this, John Steinbeck's The Grapes of Wrath. And it was one of those occasions where you finish the book, you shut the book, you look at the book cover, absolutely astounded, breathe out, and just sit there stunned. This book was amazing, absolutely amazing. Now, there are several people who are taking part in the Summer of Steinbeck who are still reading it, so I'm not going to spoil it, but I would imagine a lot of people have already read it. This was a first read for me, although I have read Steinbeck before. I love his style of writing. It's very spare and yet so poignant. He seems to be able to understand people and their relationships between each other. This book charts the fortunes of the Joad family in Dust Bowl America, who head to California because they've been forced off the land that they farmed for generations. It's brutal, this book. It was written in 1939. It doesn't pull any punches whatsoever. And the way humans can treat other humans is just astounding, and still astounds me today. The Steinbeck promises that he's really going to put the reader through the ringer, and he does. He really does. This is not a cheerful book. It's a very important book, and the messages inside it are just as valid today as they were all those years ago. It's stunningly good. Stunningly good. You know, I've done my damnedest to rip a reader's nerves to rags. I don't want him satisfied. It's a book about broken promises, false hopes, trying to fight for a better life for your family. It's just an incredible book. I finished off by reading a series of 7 articles that Steinbeck wrote that have been packaged together under the title The Harvest Gypsies. And these articles were part of the research that he did for this. Much shorter. This one actually counts for Big Book of Summer, which is great. And also another one off my 60 before 60 classics list. But The Harvest Gypsies is the research Steinbeck did wandering around camps in California in 1936 to write this series of articles, and he was accompanying someone who was responsible for one of the government run camps, and I think there were only 2 at the time. But he talks to all sorts of people. He talks to people who have travelled to California and been looking for work for months and months. He talks to people who have not been there that long. And the picture he paints is really bleak. He also comes up with some very sensible suggestions about how people who are looking for work and also people who need workers can actually strike a balance that doesn't involve humiliation and abuse. Anyway, that's my reading week. I think it's been pretty good. I have thoroughly enjoyed it. Not sure what I'm up to next week, haven't decided yet, but let me know what you're reading. I hope you're having a wonderful time. The weather is glorious. It's light here until about 10 o'clock, and because it's so warm, sitting outside in the evening reading is just lovely. Have a lovely week. I shall speak to you very soon. Thank you very much for popping by. Do check out the Bloomsday video tomorrow. It should be fun. Yes, thank you for popping by. I do appreciate it. Bye for now.